Thank you. It's early in the morning. I want everybody on their feet. We're going to exercise. We're going to exercise. All right. If you have a platform in front of you, I want you to step up with one leg and then bring your knee up high and then step back down. Take the other leg. Step up, knee up, back down. Next leg, one more time. Up and down and up and down. Excellent. Excellent. All right, have a seat. Give yourselves a hand. So, last fall, my trainer assigned me some step-up exercises, just like the ones you just did this morning. And as I was doing them every day, putting my knee up, stepping down, putting my knee up, stepping down, I started thinking a lot about platforms. You know, I spend a lot of time on platforms every day, right, Joanna? In fact, Joanna spends a lot of time stacking one or two or sometimes three for me in the OR because I'm not exactly the tallest guy in the room. But they help me get my job done. They help me work. And as I started thinking about platforms, I love words. And so I looked up the word platform. It has so many different meanings. You know, a platform is a place where you jump on a train. You step off a platform to get on a train. A platform is something that we use to drill for oil or gas. A platform is something that people campaign on. It's something that we launch rockets from. And really, a platform is a physical or a symbolic structure that enables human achievement. So as I said, I spend a lot of time during the day on these platforms. And when I'm not on these platforms, I'm coaching youth wrestling. And my youth wrestlers, platform has an important meaning for them too, because they all want to stand at the top of a platform at the end of the season. They want to win the tournament and stand on top of the platform. And what I shared with them after I had this reflection about platforms was, you don't climb to the top of a platform. You build it layer by layer by layer. And so I thought it would be a very powerful visual for my kids to show them what I meant by that. So I started talking to them about what builds the platform of a great wrestler. And I started with the work, right? You got to put the work in. You need to do the push-ups and the drilling and the conditioning. You got to have the discipline. You got to put the right food in your mouth. If you want to be a great wrestler, you need to have those skills. You need to work on those skills. That's part of your riser. These risers start building your platform, the work of wrestling. I said, well, that's going to get you somewhere, but that doesn't get you all the way because you need partnerships to achieve greatness. Partnerships are so important. Partnerships like teammates and mentors and family and coaches and the people around you who bring out your best. This is the next step to building a riser, a platform of competitive greatness. You've got to have partnerships. I told them, you can't be great without partners. I have partners in the operating room. I have partners when I coach. You just can't do it without partners. On top of that, what I talked to them last, the most important thing for competitive greatness, for a wrestler, and for any athlete for that matter, is the right mindset. You must have the right mindset. What does that mean? It means you have to deal with failure and be resilient and fight back. And you need to be coachable. And I tell my kids, coachability you can have your whole life. Coachability to me is like being a sponge, like walking around and being curious about everything in life. If you have the right mindset, these are the risers for an amazingly high wrestling platform. So I shared that with them. And then I said, you know, there's a bigger platform than this. There is a bigger platform, a more important platform that you need to work on. And that is your platform of life. Your platform of life is something that you can always work on. And it involves all these things, the virtues: honesty, responsibility, gratitude, compassion, humility, loyalty, courage. These are the virtues that one needs to work on to have a high platform of life, to have a sturdy and strong platform of life. And that is going to give you a super high platform of life. And when you stand on a platform, you can reach higher and you can achieve more and you can see farther and a different perspective. And when you see different perspectives, you get better knowledge and wisdom. So I shared all this with my wrestlers and I share it with you. And we can always work on our platform. Platforms can always be worked on. And I want to share with you 3 risers that I'm constantly working on. All of you are standing on great, strong, and sturdy platforms already. You've made great choices in your life. You're healthcare workers. You are helping people every single day. You are standing on strong platforms. You have many risers for your platform. You should be very proud of yourselves. It's a great honor to take care of people every day. The 3 risers that I work on all the time are lifelong learning, faith, and forgiveness. So I wanted to share with you some thoughts first about lifelong learning. My first lesson in lifelong learning came from my dad. He was an incredibly voracious reader. He was such an inspiring guy for me. At the end of a 40-year law career, he went back to Drew University and he got a master's in theology. Then he went and got a master's in history. And then he got a PhD in history. And he wrote his first book at the age of 83, a military history book, and his second at 88. He never, ever lost his curiosity for life. And while his love of reading didn't rub onto me immediately, what happened was, over the years, when I started Princeton Brain and Spine, I realized I had to become a stronger reader because I was going to be leading people and I needed to have more experience. So I started reading books about management and marketing and leadership. I started in the nonfiction realm, military books that would help me lead people. And that was great and very helpful. And then I moved to the self-help area, and self-help helped me in a lot of different areas to improve the way I conducted myself in the office. Then I started reading fiction. And what I realized about fiction was, fiction helps you be more empathic. It helps you get in the mind of people that you wouldn't normally get into. And when you watch a movie, it's very passive. When you're reading, you're actually in the mind of somebody that you've never been in before. And it helps you become a better leader because you can put yourself in their position. You can be more empathic. And the science shows us this. The science shows us that if you read, there's one study from my alma mater, Emory. If you read for 9 days straight, they scan your brain. The next 9 days, your brain is still metabolizing and working in all those networks. So it's like getting credit 9 days later for reading before. I tell my wrestlers, I say, that's like doing push-ups for 1 week and getting credit for 2. So the science shows that it's helpful to do. One of the things my dad gave to me many times when I was younger was poetry. And I just got to be honest, I couldn't really read it. It was too complex for me, and I didn't understand it, and I didn't get into it until I got older. And then I started reading poetry, and I realized, like, yes, some poetry is very complex, but then others are very, very simple and basic, and they're incredibly inspiring. In fact, I believe poetry is the world's first performance enhancement literature. Now, I want to share with you a poem to close out the lifelong learning section. This is a poem called Today. Today is ours. Let's live it. Love is strong. Let's give it. A song can help. Let's sing it. Peace is dear. Let's bring it. The past is gone. Don't rue it. Our work is here. Let's do it. Our world is wrong. Let's right it. The battle hard. Let's fight it. The road is rough. Let's clear it. The future vast. Don't fear it. Is faith asleep? Let's wake it. Today is ours. Let's take it. This is by Bea Richards, and I'm telling you, this is powerful stuff. It really speaks to me. I hope it speaks to you too. And this leads me to the second riser on my platform that I'm working on, and that is faith. I had the privilege 2 years ago to spend a day with Kyle Schneider. Kyle is the youngest American wrestler ever to win an Olympic gold medal, and probably is one of the greatest living wrestlers on earth. And Centra State sponsored him to come down and give a clinic to my inner city wrestlers in Trenton. Kyle, I never met a more mature and composed 21-year-old in my life. He was just this incredibly magnetic person. And when I talked with him, what he said to me was that he feels that everything he does is in glorification of God. He is an instrument of God, and everything that he does is in God's honor. And it's incredibly motivating for him. You know, Joanna and Tatiana know that I spend a moment before I operate. I go through my 5 Ps. I take a pause, I think about the patient, I make a plan, I put in a positive thought, and then I say a prayer. And, you know, skeptics might say, well, that's not going to change the outcome of the surgery. But my faith is always changing me. It's always making me stronger and better. Now, faith does not have to be tied to a religion, okay? It's just a concept. It's a belief that you're part of something bigger. If you're part of something bigger, you're going to get more out of yourself. You're going to be more inspired. You're going to have a bigger pep in your step. Being part of the OR should be a source of pride and a feeling of like, what are you doing today? I'm helping people and I'm on a team. That's going to help you get more out of yourself. I met a gentleman by the name of John Koch. He's a movie producer in Los Angeles. And he has a tragic and inspiring story about going on location to New York City, and he's filming a show, and he falls ill. He goes to the hospital. He wakes up 5 days later. He's got gangrene of his legs and his arms. He has to have 2 of his hands amputated. He's one of the first people that's had a successful hand transplant. And everybody in the ICU had written him off. All the doctors thought he was going to pass away. He had been given his last rites. And he said he was conscious for most of this. It was excruciatingly painful. He was conscious for most of this. And when he survived and he actually made it back and had his hand transplant, they asked him, like, what motivated you to keep going, to actually survive? We've never seen anybody so sick who survived. And he said, because I kept saying to myself, I have a 14-year-old girl, and I'm not going to let her live without a father. I will not let it happen. And that was what got him through a life-threatening illness. And again, the science shows us that faith helps you. People with faith have lower blood pressure, have less strokes, less cardiac disease, and if you believe you're part of something bigger, you're healthier. It's clearly demonstrated in the literature if you believe that. So I want to ask you, how can you leverage your faith to get more out of yourself? How can you use faith to help you become a better person? And that leads me to my last riser, forgiveness. Many of you know I've been writing a book. It's coming out on November 1st. And it's been many years in the makings. And as I began writing it, I started writing about lessons I learned in the operating room and how that helped me in certain things in life. But as I wrote more and more about it, I realized that a lot of the stories in it were about anxiety and fear and sadness that I had experienced in my career. And so as I wrote the book, I sort of searched my memory for patients that had affected me profoundly. And the one that I always kept coming back to, the one that affected me the most profoundly, was this young boy by the name of Anthony Lycoris. If I had to judge my 28-year career into 2 sections, It would be BA before Anthony and AA after Anthony. He was this beautiful 8-year-old boy with black curly hair, and he was in the emergency room with his mom and dad. He looked the spitting image of his father. He had fallen off the school bus that morning and cut his face. But Dad told me there's something wrong. I mean, he's not acting right. He's dropping plates at the restaurant. Dad had a local restaurant down the street. He's dropping plates. He's acting like he's drunk. He's sleeping. Quick MRI scan showed that he had a plum-sized tumor compressing his brainstem, causing hydrocephalus. I just connected with this kid. He was just so cute, and he was such a great kid, and I knew I could fix him. I had all the training. I had all the experience. I took him to the operating room 2 days later when I got all my ducks in a row. Positioned him, put a drain in, went very nicely. I made the incision, took his occipital bone off, opened the dura, came down on this tumor, surrounded it, sequentially took all of its blood supply, got in the middle of it, debulked it, shrunk it, surrounded it, and after 3 hours, then I began shaving it off of his brainstem. Shaved the tumor off of his brainstem, and I closed. Took him to the MRI scanner. Looked perfectly clean. He woke up. He was neurologically perfect. And I was on top of the world for about 24 hours. He woke up. He was moving everything. His arms were good. His speech was good. And 24 hours later, he began not moving his arms and legs. He stopped talking. He developed a rare complication called cerebellar mutism. It's characterized by shrieking every time you move their arms or their legs, and akinetics, so no movement of the arms and the legs. And every time the nurses touched him, he would shriek at the top of his lungs. It was awful. His parents were terrified. We re-scanned him. Everything looked perfect. He wasn't doing well. We had to move him to a private room because he was upsetting all the patients and the families and everything. He continued to have this. And then he got hydrocephalus. We had to put a shunt in. And then after the shunt was placed, the shunt got clogged. And then the shunt got infected. And then his wound got infected. And I just saw this little boy slipping away from me. I got to say, every time I got a page from the ICU, 394-3400, it shot jolts of lightning into me. I was like, what's wrong with Anthony now? What's going on? This makes no sense. We had a perfect operation. He should be doing perfectly. He wasn't doing perfectly. He suffered. And his parents suffered too. It was really frustrating and saddening for him, his parents, and me. And ultimately he stabilized. But I just saw what had happened, and I saw this beautiful boy slip away from me and have all these devastating complications. And I knew he was never going to be the same. Never. So once he stabilized, we were transitioning him to go to oncology and to get radiation. And I was saying goodbye to him, and his mom and dad surprised me. They said, I want to take a picture. Let's take a picture of you and Anthony. I said, okay, great. So I sat at his bedside, and they took this picture of me. And I got to tell you, I faked the smile. I faked it because all I could feel was grief and sadness. And they gave me this, and I went on my way. And I tried to do what all neurosurgeons did with these kinds of things. I suppressed it, tried to forget about it, tried to move on and distract myself. But what really happened was, I started with a lot of poor coping strategies. I couldn't get him away. I couldn't get him out of my mind. So it was an extra scotch at the end of the day. It was a long walk or a cigar. Or my biggest weakness was chewing tobacco. Chewed tobacco. And I would go for these walks, and I would just feel totally alone, I had what some psychiatrists call this thing called terrible knowledge. And that's the knowledge that, like, sometimes the world just makes no sense. It's completely capricious. It can be even malevolent. You just can't make sense of it. I'm sure you've had that feeling sometime. Well, I continued to distract myself. In fact, I ultimately quit pediatric neurosurgery. I couldn't take it. I couldn't do it. And I moved from Massachusetts to New Jersey. And I kept this plaque on my wall. But I got to tell you, every time I walked past it, it made me sad. It made me sad. So fast forward 16 years, I'm working on my book, and I'm writing my stories, and I realized that I got to finish Anthony's story. I don't know what happened to him. I just figured he had such a terrible number of complications. His pathology was anaplastic, not good. I figured he had passed away. So as I was writing, I got on the internet and I got on Facebook, and lo and behold, Lycoris Pizza Shop is still in Massachusetts, outside in Springfield. So I get on the pictures and I scroll down and I see his parents, a little older, but they're there. And then a couple more pictures down, I see this 24-year-old boy in a wheelchair. He's a man now. And he's sitting next to his parents at Rockefeller Center. I'm like, oh my God, Anthony's still alive. I couldn't believe it. I drove up there that weekend. I called ahead and I talked with Mom and Dad, and I went to the restaurant and I told them, I said, I'm writing this book, and I saw Anthony, and Anthony was there, and he was in a wheelchair, and he's definitely got some serious physical challenges, but he's alive. And I told the parents, I told them how profound Anthony had affected me and how I always felt I let him down. And I was sad, and I felt like I let him down. And they interrupted me, and they were like, Dr. McLaughlin, you're our hero. Like, you saved our boy. And they showed me another picture that they had on their restaurant. And that was one I had totally forgotten about. This was one that when I was leaving to go to New Jersey. And it was with my family and his family. For 16 years, I had been feeling sad, and they were feeling happy and grateful. And when I got in my car that day, I realized I was looking at Anthony through this telescope of, like, what could I have done better? What could I possibly, why did this happen? Instead of the way the Lycoris were looking at it the total other way. And on that day, neurosurgery got a lot easier. A lot easier. And when I went home at the end of the day, I could be with my family and my kids. It was a game changer for me. And it was working on my platform, seeing a totally different perspective of something. The Swiss psychologist Carl Jung once said, all personal problems are relevant to society because we're all so much alike. Any sufficiently profound solution may, if communicated well, reduce the likelihood of that problem existing in anyone else's experience in the future. So I want to ask all of you, who's your Anthony? What patient are you holding yourself to an impossible standard to? And when are you going to forgive yourself? Because when you forgive yourself, you free yourself and you can grow. So we've talked a lot about platforms, and I hope I've communicated to you what platforms can do and what the power of platforms are. And when you go off to work today and you're standing on your platform, you're standing on something that enables you to live your dream. Reach higher and achieve more and see things from a different perspective. And what I tell my wrestlers is, reach down and help others get up onto their platform. Thank you.
He's a wonderful coach. He's a wonderful team leader. Every time I hear his speech, every time we do the case together, I hear a message from him that he's sending to me as a team member that inspire me to get better, to be a better team leader, to be a better caregiver. I can express myself enough to say how honored to be in his room.
Just listening to Dr. McLaughlin and his faith and his compassion and how he kept going, and it just gave me courage, it gave me strength, and it was wonderful. It was great.
His platforms that he spoke about are exactly that. How to make a better person, not only in myself, but in the team that I work with and everybody around me. And I cannot say enough how he inspires me every single day that I get the chance to work with him. This was an honor. Thank you.
I think the biggest thing I got from today was a strong sense of gratitude and of optimism and hope that one day I'll be able to impact as many lives as Dr. McLaughlin has.